Welcome back. Let me get my camera to unblur. There we go. Y'all are probably going to hear my kids chatter. If I waited for a quiet moment, then I would probably never get to record. And there's something that I wanted to talk about and bring forward, something that I've been thinking about here lately. You guys know I've kind of been in the spiral analogy about consciousness and divinity itself, God, us being a fragment of that rotation of that spiral of life, spiral of God. And so I've been thinking about the different levels of that and how it relates and how you can find that in different teachings, different religious texts, just different walks of life. Spiral is quite literally everywhere. I mean, if you look out into the world, you can see the spiral in the galaxies above, in the double helix within us, the seashells. I mean, literally take a look around. I would say it's, the oldest language in the universe. So I'm not just talking about the ones that we see out here, but it's the spiral that we've been living our whole lives, every single dream that we've chased. So we're getting into the root of the physicality and the emotional journey of that spiral in each of our lives. Every dream, every goal, every failure, every high that you've reached, every time you've fallen backwards into a same old pattern or, some old fear, it's literally all a part of it. Hold on. So we journey through that spiral on a day-to-day basis. And the energy of it is always present, it's always there. How you walk through that spiral, how you move through that spiral, how you resist in that spiral, how you cycle through that spiral. It's all your choice. It's a co-creation factor. Now, I'm not talking on the level of, well, we create our own reality. We can say that. But more so, the spiral to me allows you to embody that. No longer just aligning to that fact or just saying it, but it is an actual embodiment, co-creation. The spiral itself is a pattern of growth, pattern of evolution. And if you ever wondered, why do I keep going through this? Why do I keep circling back to the same old things, the same old fears, the same old self-doubt, the same old, self-esteem issues, the same old patterns, the same old experiences, the same scarcity mindset? Even after you have done the work, you've done the shadow work. Oh my gosh, have I done the shadow work? My entire life. Okay, that's a little dramatic, but seriously, 14, 15 is when I started asking really deep, raw questions. And so this is why that spiral, the pattern that we are directing, the pattern that we have co-created. The spiral doesn't just rise, it also descends as well. It can also change directions. It can also get stuck in place. It can go back down. It can rise again. And this really isn't just my idea. I mean, if I take a look around at teachings and religious texts, it's actually written in old stories of humanity. Mystics in medieval Christianity called it the threefold way: purification, illumination, and union. In Hinduism, I think about the Kundalini, the coiled serpent that rises in a spiral through the energy centers within our body to merge with the divine. And that's all I'm really saying. It's the same thing. Divinity is that spiral. You are that spiral. What I am embodying is meeting that divinity to co-create. And I gotta say, it's working because I have been testing my theory every single day. And yes, I've experienced the ascending, and I've also experienced the descending. I've experienced the void, the in between space. So it's out there. All kinds of teachings. Think about in like Celtic lands, the triple spiral marks the endless turning wheel of life, death, and rebirth. So we grow by circling back, but never to the same place. I think the ultimate journey of this is evolving, is growing, learning, moving, leveling up, however you want to put it. And I feel like that's what consciousness, God, source, energy itself meant to do, evolve, creation. So let's talk about this threefold path, the purification, step one. This is really the descent, right? This is the place you hit when things kind of feel heavy, things come falling down, the abundance dries up, when the clients stop coming, when the numbers in your account shrink instead of grow. I've been there many times. And most people will sit there, and myself included, will be like, I'm so stuck. This is such a huge setback. I don't know where I'm going. I feel directionless. I don't know what I'm doing. You know, that that energy you are coding into that co-creation as you move into that space is showing you more of it. Alignment. None of that is setback, by the way. We in human emotions and human terms, we think, man, this is sorrow, this is rock bottom, this is hard, this is trouble, this is anger, this is grief, this is sadness, this is depression. But it's simply you moving into that void. And if you can see it in the way of saying, oh, this is stillness, this is space of source itself. This is where I get to purify. This is where I get to strip away this old pattern, strip away these old stories, strip away this identity, strip away these limited beliefs. This is where you figure out that you were taught money is unsafe. This is where you were taught wanting more makes you greedy. This is where, you know, that idea that people like you have to work twice as hard, you have to break your back for the money. You have to work twice as hard and get half as much. It's programmed in there. But in that voice, in that void, ooh, yes, with that voice, we've learned in Blavatsky's Voice of the Silence. Listen when you're in that stillness. Listen when you're in that void. See what you can strip away, what you can dissolve. See what you can shift to recode and repattern your spiral. In Christian mysticism, the stage is like a purging of the false self. In Kabbalah, it's a contraction. And it feels like it too. It's kind of like where the old vessel is broken, but you haven't quite moved into the new one yet. or the old way of thinking. It's definitely distorted, but you haven't quite repatterned the new one. And that can feel really uncomfortable. It can make you feel like you're failing. It can make you feel like you're lost. It can make you feel like you're directionless. It can make you feel like this is the end. I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know. It can also make you stop. It can make you give up. It can make you sink even further into that. But once you remember, once you realize, I'm given the space in this space to expand, to purify, to see myself truly selfless. It's the first step. And then you move into the second step of illumination. And this is a pivot point. This is that moment where you're coming up out of that, and that moment where the spiral begins to change. It begins to repattern. And something I've come to learn in my own experience as I'm testing this, there will be tests. If you have recoded and repatterned and said, oh, I'm worthy of the universal abundance. Well, your first lesson or test coming up out of that, are you truly aligned to that? Are we sure about this pattern? Let me show you some things. You gotta illuminate. You gotta pay attention. You gotta observe. In the space of illumination, the light doesn't come from outside of you. To begin to think in terms of everything is within, even the spiral, even though I'm using it out here, begin to embody the truth within. The light doesn't come from above you. It doesn't come outside of you. It comes from the inside, the darkness that you just faced, the shadows you just learned about, the roots that you dug to, the excavation process. And you begin to see abundance differently. It's really not about money anymore. It becomes the little things. The person that stopped you, the little old lady that stopped you, just to chit chat for a moment. The life twinkling in her eyes. The coffee someone bought you without even asking. A stranger that offered some sort of assistance, maybe a job lead, maybe a good idea, maybe to compliment you on your hair. It's the way your ideas begin to illuminate too. The light bulb moment. You start connecting in ways that you didn't before. If we look at that in the Buddhist teaching, this is a flash of insight, right? That turn of the wheel of the Dharma within you. Lots of turning going on over here. And in the Celtic myth, it's the moment you emerge from the labyrinth, carrying some sort of treasure that you found in its depths. In the illumination, you actually start to shift your questions. Instead of asking, how do I do this? Which way do I go? Or how do I get more? You begin to ask things like, if I already had more than enough, how would I actually move today? How would I flow? And you begin to flow in that manner. And from that act, from that space, you start moving different. You take the chance. Your confidence rises. You send the email you've been putting off. You make the offer because what the hell? You say yes to the opportunities that you used to fear, used to doubt. You rise from the spiral begins to rise. And you begin to shift into the higher aspect of the spiral. This is really when you move into step 3, the union between you and source, God frequency, consciousness, divinity. This is that spiral. The spiral spiral. I might turn that. This is when you stop chasing the flow. You start living it. You have embodied your new pattern of the spiral. You know now that you're not separate from God. You're not separate from source. You're not separate from divinity. You're not waiting for anything to arrive. You're not waiting for the abundance because you are the river. You're the whole chain of command that plugs into the universal bank. You're the plug itself. In the language in Christian mystics, the union of the soul of God, right? It was a process. We got to work our way back to Kabbalah. We got to climb the ladder. We got to spiral through. And Taoist practice is the effortless return to harmony. Effortless. And that's what union really feels like. It begins to become effortless. And suddenly you're looking around like, this is nice. I like this. It feels balanced. Everything stabilizes. There's no distortion of the energy out here nor within here. In the union, in that oneness, unity with source itself, you give without fear because you've learned that what leaves you returns multiplied. And I have had so many experiences with that. Whatever I spend comes back to me times 3. So I used to say that. And I'd be damned if it didn't work. And that's what led me to thinking about this anyways. How does one tap into that? How does one co-create with that? I began thinking about kind of where I was and how I operated 3, 4, 5 years ago. And quite literally, I could go and spend $40. I would come home and I would get a $40 order. Every single thing I spent was returned. There was no, oh, no, but I can't because I don't have this. There was none of that. It was absolute abundance, everything I needed and more, but more so than that, love flowed around me, in, throughout, within, so gracefully, so beautifully. And I kept thinking, what was I doing then that I haven't been doing here lately? And I started thinking about the spiral again. And I started thinking about the process. And I started thinking about how long it took me to get into that because I literally worked with my mind day in and day out to program it, to believe there's more than enough out here for everyone, not just me, for everyone. So I created without grasping. I knew my worth was not measured by likes or follows or sales or I cheered for me. The divinity within me cheered for me. And so here's the truth. Life will still dip. as I see. I've seen the dip, I've seen the experience, I've seen the recoding, I've seen the repatterning. And the spiral will still go too fast sometimes, and it'll still curve down sometimes, and there'll still be a descent. But when it does, try not to panic. Try to remember. Remember that you know how to actually return. And because of that, you actually begin to process faster. It's easier within and out here. That remembrance is alive in you. And so you rise faster and you rise higher and you rise stronger than before. The only thing I would say to grasp onto is that remembrance. Latch onto it. Keep it alive inside of you. You know, if you feel blocked or if you feel like you're slipping back into the in-between, if you feel like you're slipping back into the descent, back into rock bottom, back into the void, you're not failing. You're absolutely not broken. You're not at a standstill. You're not lost. You are a part of the spiral. And you are spiraling. Isn't that funny how people say she's spiraling out? I think now the term's like, you're crashing out. Man, I'm spiraling. And quite honestly, if you are in tune with your energy within your body, how many of you guys have felt the spiral within and how chaotic it can be at times? I have. You are that spiral and you do co-create it. The same spiral that the ancients carved into stone. You're that spiral. The same spiral that the mystics prayed their way through. You are that spiral. You're the spiral that the stars follow as they dance. You are that spiral. And when you walk in this threefold path, purification, illumination, and union, you transform the descent into the very force that can carry you home, that can make you really, truly feel at home within yourself, to feel, to align, and to absolutely embody that oneness, that wholeness. So I would say, spiral on, and I'll see you next time.